For more on the one-year mark since the January 6th attack on the Capitol, we are joined by Democratic Congresswoman Karen Bass of California. Congresswoman, thanks as always for coming on the show.
Sure.
Of course, it's been 1 year nearly since the day when you and your colleagues faced that insurrection. Now that you've had the time to reflect on the gravity of that day, are you surprised the violence reached such a crescendo, or should we have all seen it coming?
Well, it's a little bit of both, absolutely. I was surprised. I mean, I had told my friends and family the day before not to worry about me. I was going to be in one of the safest places in the country. I was going to be inside the Capitol. And so although we all anticipated something, never in a million years would have imagined what took place actually happened.
Democrats have several events planned, as you know, to mark the day on Thursday, but most Republicans have remained rather quiet with regard to the one-year mark. Have you found it difficult to work with members on the other side of the aisle in the past year, especially those who have downplayed the actions of that day and what led up to them?
Well, I think being a member of Congress in this environment, we all learn to compartmentalize. But I will tell you that there are a handful of members who absolutely have distorted, lied, exaggerated about what took place on that day. Complete denial that it even happened, even saying that it really wasn't Trump supporters, it was Antifa, it was Black Lives Matter, anything to get away from the truth. And it is hard to sit in a hearing and listen to that over and over again when you know that it is 100% false.
And the country, as you know, again, remains deeply divided, with a considerable portion of the population still believing that the 2020 election was stolen. Right. Is there anything that you can see that can change just how polarized we are?
Well, I mean, first of all, we really have to get back to understanding that there is a difference between the truth and a lie. And it just is not acceptable for people to put out absolute false information. And frankly, that division, the anger, all of that is one of the reasons why I decided to come home, because I certainly didn't want to see the same type of division take place in my city. But I will tell you that in D.C. now, it's not just a matter of the members that we all wonder, were they actually involved in the planning? But it's the staff, and then it's some members of the Capitol Police, and that's a terrible thing. You know that one member of the police force was indicted, and then, very little is said about the officers that died either that day or several days later. So the tragedy is still very much alive in all of us on the Hill, and to this day, now, when I go to vote in the House chambers, I have to go through metal detectors because of my colleagues that want to carry guns on the House floor and understand that the only people in the chamber are other members of Congress. So no, it has not left us. That's very much real.
And hopefully we'll be able to get to the bottom of just who was involved, to what extent, at what level. Democrats are once again pushing for voting rights reform at the federal level. But as you know, at the local and state level, more people who support the former president's false claims about the election have gained power in many states. How concerned are you about the potential outcome of future elections after what we experienced last year?
Oh, I'm deeply concerned. And it's not just people's opinions, but it's the fact that in some states, that they are moving to change the way the election process takes place. And if they don't like the results, when they just change the people that tabulate the results. So what we're seeing happen in this country, when it happens in other countries, the United States denounces what happened, talks about cutting foreign aid, and sanctions countries. We even refer to it as a closing of democratic space. That is exactly what is happening in the United States of America, and it's bad enough, the impact that it has on our country, but it is extremely damaging to our standing around the world.
Leading up to the election, we had various voting officials on the show, and I would ask them, what keeps you up at night, leading up to that day? And I'd like to pose the same question to you. What keeps you up at night with regard to the state of our democracy?
Oh, what keeps me up at night is absolutely the threat to voting and the fact that we have got to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. In addition to that, the other thing that keeps me up at night is knowing that there are cells around our country that essentially, in my opinion, are involved in or can be involved in domestic terrorism. I mean, what happened on that day? We know probably the majority of people were caught up in the crowd, but there were some very deliberate, organized forces that were there, some connected to the military, some connected to law enforcement. And the fact that we have not uncovered the truth just yet is very scary and keeps me up at night. And then there are all of those people that have the same tendencies that weren't there on January 6th. So I think we need to take a very hard look in the mirror in our country at the state of our democracy and at the state of the division that has taken place. And unfortunately, President Trump led that division, and that division, I believe, has spilled over to cities and states around the country. I'm worried about the division in my own city around the problem that we have over 40,000 people who are unhoused, and how now there's a level of anger that has set in about this. It's a humanitarian crisis. It shouldn't be dealt with in that way. So I think that this has impacted our country in some very profound ways.
Congressman, I just want to go back to one of the points that you made with regard to, you said that we haven't discovered the truth yet about, who was involved, to what extent people were involved in January 6th. Why haven't, it's been a year. I mean, how long does it take? And we're dealing with what we think are some of the most highly esteemed people in our country who are working on getting to the bottom of this. A year later, we still don't really know the tentacles.
Well, the January 6th task force that was set up, select committee that was set up by the speaker, is absolutely on its way to getting the information. And I'm sure the committee members know far more than I do, but we're going to learn more in the near future. But one of the reasons why it's taken so long is the same thing we suffered from 4 years during the Trump administration, is they're not cooperating. They're not cooperating. They believe that they were above the law, and many of the people that are being subpoenaed or asked to come before the committee are continuing to have that same type of behavior, even trying to hide under Trump's fictitious executive privilege, which he no longer has because he is just now a normal citizen. So I think that we have a lot further to go. Now, I do believe that one of the delay tactics is Republicans want to hold out until the next election, where they believe that they're going to take back the House. And then, of course, they will disband the committee immediately. The country needs to know the truth.
Need to get those answers. Congresswoman Karen Bass of California, we thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.